Hi there. So we're at the Sirimangalo International Meditation Center. Bhante, would you mind telling us where the center gets its name from?
It's named after my teacher. His name is Sirimangalo.
Is he from Sri Lanka?
Thailand.
And here at the center, there's a variety of courses, meditation. There's a 21-day introductory course, advanced courses, and so on. People from all over the world come here to meditate. So the 21-day course that I did was very beneficial to me. Would you mind talking a little bit about the benefits of meditation and why you think it hasn't spread to all corners of the world?
Well, it's beneficial, but it's also very difficult, and it requires someone to want to benefit themselves in this particular way. Most people don't have a concept that what would benefit them is a rigorous sort of self-evaluation. Those who do, I think wouldn't, well, they're so far away from thinking that Buddhism is going to give that to them. For various reasons, Buddhism is seen as a religion. It's seen as spiritual, as mystical, and so on. And so, for some people, it's just a matter that there's no modern scientific data to back it up, and so Buddhists have tried to fit into that mold and provide this sort of external scientific data, which is problematic because it's not how you judge results. It's hard for someone else to judge results because they're looking at specific, well, I look at the brain usually and so on. For other people, it's just a matter of not having the time or taking the time. Just because it's not like the physical health where you can just dissociate yourself from it. I mean, for some people, the mere idea of giving up pleasure, it's just incomprehensible to them. Giving up the things they cling to, the things they desire for. If you have a physical sickness, it's easier for us to say, oh, fix it, because it's getting in the way of you getting all the things that you want. So it's much harder to see how things like getting what we want and getting upset and so on, unless you have some very great suffering in your life, it's very hard to see that that's also getting in the way of you being happy. It's not to say that people don't. It's just to say that many people don't see it. It was very contrary to the things we're taught in the world that bring us happiness. And it's just, we're very much steeped in things like addiction and aversion and views and conceits and beliefs. A mere belief will stop you. If you say, I believe, so many things that follow that statement can just prevent you from ever wanting to meditate. Just that, Maybe if you gave up that belief, you would look at meditation and say, hey, this is good for me.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I believe, and it's often religious or it's secular or it's whatever. I believe everyone should strive after what makes them happy. So something like that can make it very difficult to even think that meditation might be good. The Buddha said views are very dangerous. But it's dangerous. I mean, it's not to say they're scary, but they're just so powerful. They can just block you because it doesn't mean anything. I can say, I believe. Anyway, things like that. There's many reasons. It's all of our many different kinds of obstructions, things that obstruct us from seeing clearly. I mean, our claim is that if you see clearly, you would see that meditation, mindfulness anyway, is to your benefit. That's another issue, is that people sort of conflate all kinds of meditation. And it's true that many kinds of meditation, why would you want to practice? There are reasons, but you'd have to have very specific reasons. Like there are meditations about remembering your past lives. I mean, for some people it's not even real. Remembering your past lives, well, there's no such thing. It's just people are deluding themselves. There are meditations about sending love to all beings. Well, for many people that's a great meditation, but you have to have a certain type of desire or intention to want to develop that. But mindfulness, it's universal. So I mean, there has been a lot of talk about it and sort of widespread adoption of mindfulness in modern times, for the reason that it is, as you say, I mean, it's universally beneficial. So I don't think it's not happening. I just think there are many reasons why you'll never get your universal adaptation of good. There are just many people out there who are intent on evil. It's unfortunate, but it's true. We're not all looking for good. There are people out there who are very much intent on hurting other people, even hurting themselves.
I think that's an interesting thing to think about, like good versus evil. I think if people could for perhaps a few minutes have a mind of peaceful cessation, for example, or just saw the benefit of meditating sincerely for a week or so, I think there could be a revolution of consciousness, and I don't mean that lightly. So the next question, I heard you're taking a feminism course, so if you'd like to speak about the language, feel free to do so. The question that I'm asking everyone for this project is if we as people are to live in universal brotherhood, or universal love, if you prefer that term, what is it that we have to do, and what prevents us from doing that? Perhaps if there are people who are bent on evil in the world, do you think it's an obtainable goal?
Yeah, I mean, language is not such a big deal, and I understood what you meant. I just thought it was funny because in modern times everyone's so concerned with or conscious of, it's not to say to ridicule it, but it's conscious of using words like brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about it, of course, is it does sound a little bit cultish.
Mm-hmm.
When you say brotherhood, well, some people have used that word for fairly specific purposes. But I don't think what you're talking about is just love. You're talking about unity, right? And sort of the move away from us and them, of xenophobia, of in-groups and borders and distinctions like race and ethnicity, and even religion, really. Religion is so funny because you become a part of a group of, and some of the people in that group may be terribly evil people who you don't want to have anything to do with. But you're stuck because they're also your group, which is really silly. Even things like family do that. Say, my family, well, your family could be full of awful people. Not full, but some people in your family could be awful people. But we're stuck with them. It's kind of silly, isn't it? If you look at how borders are drawn, if you look at the history of it, anyone who looked at that would just think it was ridiculous and say, "Why are you? What? This is meaningless." They would look at a border and say, "What a stupid thing to do," because sometimes it was in the middle of a group of ethnic people who identified as one group, and you cut a border and suddenly they're killing each other. Well, they're not, but suddenly. Two groups in the new country are killing each other because they weren't killing themselves before, but now this is my country and I'm going to rule it, and things like that. But we do, as soon as the borders are drawn, as soon as the lines are drawn in the sand. In so many ways, we take up positions. And so, I mean, I think the point is we reinforce these in our mind. We have a habit that I think modern scientists would say is a system in the brain. Right? Of course, I don't like that sort of language. I don't buy it, because I'm more for the idea that things are a little more fluid. And of course, with the concept of past lives, it all becomes habits anyway. But anyway, there is a system that we construct, or that exists, whereby we delineate things. And that can be useful for us. Scientists, biologists, evolutionary theorists, they talk about this sort of thing is useful. Drawing borders, having in-groups. There's an evil side to it, because it's useful for creating war. You're much better able to kill other people if you have a group of people. Me by myself, I want to go out and kill my neighbor, it's not going to happen. But if I have a group of people who, then I win. And so they talk about how evolution led us to create in-groups and so on. I think that sort of thing is standing in our way. Just habits, As with so many things, it's about how we look at the world. I think the concept that you're getting at, whether you use the word brotherhood or so, it's a very important concept. Not that we are one with everyone, because we're not. Some people are very, very different from us, and we have to say evil. Some people, they're not intrinsically evil, but they have developed and are on evil paths. They're very much intent on things that we have to call evil. It's not. I'm not saying what Buddhism says is evil. I'm saying it's evil. It hurts people. It hurts themselves. Doesn't do any good for anything or anyone. That's what we mean by evil. And so we aren't one with those people, but we are not categorically different from them. They are not evil and we are good. They are people, like us being people, and they are intent on evil. And we are sometimes also intent on evil. And so it's about understanding the mechanisms behind reality. You can only do that if you stop with concepts, if you stop with Buddhists and Christians and so on. You can't get at what's really going on when you rely on concepts, when you rely on categories and so on. Only when you break it down and say, well, when someone believes in this and this and this is what's going on behind the scenes. That's very similar to what's going on for me, for you, for everyone. What's going on is body and mind interacting with the external world as well, and formulating all sorts of things, mental and physical, creating things like belief or perception of difference. I'm different from you. You're not like me. I'm better than you. You're better than me. This sort of thing. I don't know if that answered your question. Were you asking? You want to know why I think that there is no universal unity?
Mm-hmm. It seems to me that with meditation, for example, I don't want to get into an idea of utopia so much, but it just seems that there's some common sense things that would spread loving kindness and benefit to all people. For example, meditation. And so I wonder why perhaps that just hasn't, if something so clearly intrinsically good and has such positive benefits, why isn't it that we do that thing? So I suppose the question, to state it one more time, is if we're to live in universal unity, what do we have to do in order to do that, and what prevents us from doing that? And from your discussion, the delineation of borders, right, these mental habits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. I think that's the most important first step. mean, it's all theoretical. I don't think this is ever going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
because I think there's always going to be people going the wrong way, and the world is always going to change. There's not always going to be people like you and me to even talk about these things. Maybe someday the world will be full of evil, and no one will think a good thing. Maybe other times the world will be full of good, and everyone will be asking, hey, we should just become all one group and not fight anymore. And then they won't fight for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But to say that we're going to, so I don't think it's ever going to be universal, but that doesn't mean the questions aren't important, because those questions are questions that will lead to good. And good is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Good is part of our own personal path and our own personal journey. So once we have, even for ourselves and for people that we know, broken down those borders, we still have the problem that we fight. We fight over things we want. We fight over things we don't want. So if I want something and you want something, we're going to fight over it. We're going to get in conflict. Whether we fight is up to us. If we both, or if I don't want something, you do something and I don't like it, or there is something and I don't want it, we might fight. So even beyond having some universal communities also fight. Same people within religions fight. Monks fight with monks. No? Even monks, even Buddhist monks fight. Sometimes physically. It can happen because they're people.
Mm-hmm.
So there are two types of defilements, really. Two types of bad things in our minds, really. One is where we have these sort of ideas, bad ideas, like us and them, or better and worse, like I'm better, you're worse, and I'm smarter than you, or so on, and I'm better. But the other is just pure likes and dislikes, really. But that's such a simple way of putting it. Likes becomes greed, becomes need, becomes addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And then dislikes becomes anger and hatred and rage, revenge and aggression. And that's very different from this us and them mentality. Because a person can be racist but not violent. A person can be violent and not racist. They feed off each other, but they're different. So I think those are the two things that you always have to keep in mind. Your views and ideas, and changing people's ideas through education. But education isn't in that way just giving information and helping people learn about other people and so on. It's not going to change the fact that we have addictions and aversions. Even when we are all one group, we're still going to have to deal with our greed and anger. Not to say that it's a significant step if you do overcome bigotry and xenophobia and so on. Just there's delusions and ignorance mainly that leads people to hate one another. But even then, there's still going to be hate. So it's really two-step, I think. And it should always be this sort of two-step. That's how, in meditation, that's how it works, really. This foundation course, the most important thing we're trying to overcome is wrong views. These bad ideas and bad misunderstanding, ignorance about yourself and the world. Even when you've done that, you still have greed and anger, you still have all this. But the idea is you've given up some delusion.
Mm-hmm.
So the next step in your practice, which I think is applicable to your questions, is working on greed and anger.
I think you're right. I think after I finished the course, I was just sitting, laying there, and I thought, oh, I'm done. I've achieved happiness and peace. Like, I did it. But then, 20 minutes later, you're feeling anger, feeling resentment. It's like, oh, come on, Spence, you just did this. So I meditated again for 2 hours. It got a little bit better. I think there's some Buddhist text I think I read where it said, it's about chipping away the imperfections bit by bit by bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like a sage shapes himself, so to speak.
Yeah, it's not so much about not so much about changing your habits of things like anger and greed and so on, but it's about slowly chipping away at the ignorance and the wrong ideas, because it's still ignorance that makes us get angry. For example, we don't realize that anger is problematic, that anger is hurting us, and so what you're chipping away at is this wrong idea, this misunderstanding. The more you see anger, instead of trying to get rid of it, the more you see it and how bad it is, how uncomfortable, unpleasant, and just all around icky it is, the less angry you get.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I've been going around intentionally asking people this question who I've seen as wise and who I see bring good peace and kindness into this world. And I think from all the things that you do, this center, the meditation practice in general, that you're one of those people. So thank you very much for your time and what you do.